Most people believe that failure is the greatest threat to their future. They spend years trying to avoid making mistakes, protecting themselves from embarrassment, rejection, or disappointment. But after watching people build companies, chase impossible goals, and transform entire industries, I've come to believe something very different. Failure is rarely what destroys a dream. Waiting does. Waiting quietly steals your future one day at a time, without making a sound. It convinces you that tomorrow will somehow be a better day to begin, that you'll have more confidence next month, more experience next year, or more certainty when the timing finally feels right. But here's the uncomfortable truth. That perfect moment almost never arrives. Time has a strange way of rewarding people who move before they feel completely ready. Every meaningful achievement starts with uncertainty. Every innovation begins with questions instead of answers. Every successful journey begins with someone taking a step while still carrying doubt. If you wait until every fear disappears, you'll be waiting long after the opportunity has disappeared with it. Think about how many ideas have remained trapped inside people's minds simply because they kept telling themselves, "I'm not ready yet." How many businesses were never started, how many conversations were never had, how many relationships were never repaired, how many talents were buried because someone believed they needed just a little more time. The cost of waiting is rarely visible in the moment, but over the years it becomes enormous. It becomes the life you could have lived but never gave yourself permission to pursue. The world doesn't pause while you're deciding. Technology keeps evolving, markets keep changing. Other people keep learning, improving, and taking action. Opportunities don't send reminders asking if you're finally prepared. They simply move on to the person who is willing to begin before everything feels certain. That doesn't mean you should be reckless. It means you should understand that clarity often comes after action, not before it. Confidence is built by doing difficult things repeatedly, not by endlessly thinking about them. Progress belongs to people who accept that they will learn faster in motion than they ever will standing still. You don't need to know every answer before taking the first step. You don't need universal approval before believing in your own direction. You don't need perfect conditions before deciding your future deserves your effort today. The truth is, every day you delay becomes another brick in the wall, separating you from the life you're capable of creating. Right now, somewhere inside you, there's a decision you've been postponing. You already know what it is. You don't need another sign, you need the courage to move. Because in the end, the greatest risk was never failing. It was allowing time to quietly accomplish what fear never could. Once you stop waiting, something remarkable begins to happen. The noise around you starts to lose its power, and the voice within you becomes impossible to ignore. We live in a world that constantly competes for our attention. Every notification, every opinion, every headline, and every expectation from other people pulls us in a different direction. Before long, it's easy to forget what you actually think because you've spent so much time reacting to what everyone else thinks. But the most important conversations you'll ever have are rarely the loudest. They're the quiet ones that happen when you're honest with yourself deep down. Most people already know the truth about the decisions they're avoiding. They know when they're staying in a job that no longer challenges them. They know when they're holding on to relationships that no longer help them grow. They know when they've settled for comfort instead of pursuing purpose. Yet they keep searching for another opinion, another article, another video, hoping someone else will make the decision for them. The irony is that the answer has often been there all along. That inner voice isn't always comfortable. It doesn't promise an easy road or instant success. Sometimes it asks you to let go of what feels familiar. Sometimes it tells you to admit you've been wrong. Sometimes it pushes you toward a goal so ambitious that even saying it out loud feels intimidating. That's exactly why so many people silence it. It's easier to distract yourself than to confront the possibility that you're capable of much more than you've allowed yourself to become. I've learned that the biggest breakthroughs don't begin with certainty, they begin with honesty. The moment you stop pretending that everything is fine when it isn't, you create space for real change. The moment you admit that you've outgrown your current limits, you give yourself permission to build something bigger. Growth has a way of starting with uncomfortable questions rather than comfortable answers. Don't confuse that inner voice with fear. Fear tells you to stay exactly where you are because it's safe. Your deeper instincts challenge you to move because they recognize your potential. One tries to protect your comfort. The other tries to protect your future. Learning the difference is one of the most valuable skills you will ever develop. There will always be people who doubt your vision, because they can't see what you see. There will always be reasons to postpone difficult decisions. But if every important choice in your life is based on external approval, you'll eventually wake up living someone else's version of success instead of your own. Take a few moments to listen, not to the expectations surrounding you, but to the conviction growing quietly inside you. That persistent feeling you've been dismissing may not be trying to disrupt your life. It may be trying to rescue it. And the future you've been searching for might begin the moment you finally trust the voice that has never stopped believing in what you're capable of becoming. Once you begin listening to that inner voice, you'll notice something else that has been quietly shaping your life for far too long. It isn't a lack of intelligence. It isn't a lack of opportunity. More often than not, it's fear. Not the dramatic kind that announces itself, but the subtle kind that disguises itself as being practical, responsible, or realistic. It whispers maybe next year. It tells you, what if you fail? It convinces you that staying where you are is the smartest option, even when every part of you knows you've already outgrown that place. Fear is incredibly persuasive because it doesn't always sound negative. Sometimes it sounds logical. It presents long lists of reasons why now isn't the right time. It points to every possible obstacle while ignoring every possible breakthrough. It magnifies the cost of trying but hides the far greater cost of never trying at all. And if you're not paying attention, you slowly begin building your life around avoiding discomfort instead of pursuing possibility. The problem is that fear has one goal: to keep everything exactly the way it is. It doesn't care whether you're fulfilled. It doesn't care whether you're living up to your potential. It only cares that today feels predictable. But nothing extraordinary has ever come from choosing predictability over purpose. Every meaningful achievement, every innovation that changed the world, every dream that once seemed impossible existed because someone decided that uncertainty was a price worth paying. Think about the moments in your life that changed you the most. Chances are, they didn't happen when you felt completely prepared. They happened when you stepped into situations that stretched your abilities, challenged your assumptions, and forced you to grow. Looking back, those moments probably seemed terrifying beforehand, but they became defining chapters because you refused to let fear write the ending. Courage isn't something people are born with. It's something they develop. Every time you act despite uncertainty, you strengthen your ability to face even bigger challenges. Confidence doesn't magically appear before action. It grows because of action. That's why waiting to feel fearless is one of the biggest traps you can fall into. Fear doesn't disappear through thinking. It begins to lose its influence the moment you decide to move anyway. There will always be reasons to hesitate. There will always be voices predicting failure, reminding you of past mistakes, or questioning whether you're capable. But remember this: those voices are focused on the limits of who you've been, not the possibilities of who you're becoming. Your future doesn't require perfection. It requires progress. One decision, one conversation, one step taken today can begin a chain reaction that completely transforms the direction of your life. So stop asking yourself whether fear is where it is present. It probably will be. Ask yourself a better question. Is fear qualified to decide the future you deserve? The answer has always been no. Then the moment you stop giving fear the final vote is the moment your future finally gets the chance to speak. When fear no longer has the final say, something powerful begins to shift. You stop seeing your future as a distant destination and start recognizing that it is being constructed, piece by piece, through the decisions you make today. This is where many people misunderstand success. They imagine it as one extraordinary moment, a lucky break, a perfect opportunity, or a dramatic turning point. But the reality is much quieter. The future isn't built in a single day. It's built by ordinary choices repeated with extraordinary consistency. Every morning, whether you realize it or not, you're casting a vote for the person you're becoming. The decision to learn something instead of scrolling endlessly. The decision to finish what you started instead of leaving it for tomorrow. The decision to have the difficult conversation you've been avoiding. The decision to take responsibility rather than make excuses. These moments seem insignificant when viewed individually, but over weeks, months, and years, they become the foundation of an entirely different life. People often ask why success seems to come so suddenly for some individuals. What they don't see are the thousands of quiet decisions that happened long before anyone noticed the results. They don't see the late nights spent learning, the failures that became lessons, or the discipline that continued long after motivation disappeared. What looks like an overnight transformation is usually the outcome of countless choices made when nobody was watching. The same principle works in reverse. Small compromises don't appear dangerous at first. Skipping one opportunity to improve doesn't seem like a big deal. Delaying one important decision feels harmless. Settling for less than your best just this once appears insignificant. But those choices accumulate just as powerfully as positive ones do. The direction of your life is rarely changed by one dramatic mistake. More often, it's shaped by the habits you repeat without thinking. This is why ownership matters so much. The moment you stop blaming circumstances, other people, or bad luck, you reclaim the ability to shape what comes next. You may not control every event that happens to you, but you always have influence over how you respond. That response becomes your next decision, and your next decision becomes another brick in the future you're building. Don't underestimate the power of consistency. Grand visions are inspiring, but consistent action is what turns those visions into reality. Progress isn't measured only by giant leaps. Sometimes it's measured by refusing to quit when the excitement fades, by showing up when it's inconvenient, and by choosing discipline over distraction one more time than you chose it yesterday. The future you've been imagining isn't waiting somewhere out ahead of you. It's already taking shape through every thought you entertain, every habit you reinforce, and every decision you make after this moment. Build it with intention, because one day you'll wake up living inside the life your choices quietly created, and the decisions you make today will determine whether you meet that future with regret or with pride. As you begin making better choices day after day, you'll eventually discover something that changes the way you think about success forever. The life you've been dreaming about isn't being withheld because the world is against you. More often, it's waiting for you to become the person who can create it, sustain it, and grow with it. We spend so much time asking how to achieve bigger goals that we forget to ask a more important question: who do I need to become in order to live that life? Every meaningful ambition makes a demand before it offers a reward. It asks for greater discipline before greater freedom. It asks for resilience before recognition. It asks for patience before results. The challenge isn't simply reaching a new destination. It's transforming into someone capable of thriving once you get there. If your mindset remains the same while your opportunities grow, you'll eventually find yourself overwhelmed by the very success you once prayed for. Growth begins internally long before it becomes visible externally. The strongest people aren't necessarily the most talented or the luckiest. They're the ones who continue evolving even when no one is applauding. They read when others are distracted. They practice when others are comfortable. They ask difficult questions about themselves instead of blaming everyone else. They understand that every day is an opportunity to become a little wiser, a little stronger, and a little more prepared than they were yesterday. One of the greatest traps is believing that changing your environment alone will change your life. A new city, a new job, or a new opportunity can certainly help, but if you carry the same limiting beliefs, the same excuses, and the same habits into every new chapter, the results will eventually begin to look familiar. Real transformation doesn't happen because your surroundings change. It happens because your thinking changes. When your perspective expands, your decisions improve. When your decisions improve, your life begins to reflect that growth. This doesn't mean becoming someone else. It means uncovering the version of yourself that has been buried beneath doubt, fear, and hesitation. The potential has always been there. The discipline has always been possible. The creativity, the courage, and the determination you've admired in others are qualities you can develop within yourself. Human potential is far greater than most people ever discover because they stop growing long before they reach their true capacity. There will never be a point where you've learned everything or mastered every challenge. The people who accomplish extraordinary things remain students throughout their lives. They stay curious, they adapt, they improve. They understand that success isn't a finish line. It's a commitment to continuous evolution. So don't just chase a bigger future. Chase a better version of yourself. Every lesson you embrace, every fear you overcome, and every habit you strengthen is quietly preparing you for opportunities that don't yet exist in your life. The future you've been dreaming about isn't waiting for luck to find you. It is waiting for you to become the person who is finally ready to meet it. We've talked about why waiting is more dangerous than failure. We've talked about listening to the voice inside you instead of the noise around you. We've talked about refusing to let fear make your decisions, choosing your future one action at a time, and becoming the person capable of living the life you imagine. But none of those ideas will matter if they remain nothing more than inspiring thoughts. Information can change your perspective, but only action can change your life. This is the moment where most people separate into two groups. One group feels inspired for a few hours, maybe even a few days. They nod in agreement, tell themselves they'll start soon, and then quietly return to the same routines that have been holding them back. The other group does something different. They make one decision before the feeling fades. They send the message they've been avoiding. They begin the project they've been postponing. They write down the plan, make the call, take the first step, and refuse to let another day pass without moving forward. You don't have to transform your entire life tonight. That's another misconception that keeps people stuck. Lasting change rarely happens through one massive leap. It happens through one meaningful decision followed by another, and then another. Momentum is built in small moments. Every great achievement you've ever admired was once nothing more than a single action that someone had the courage to take before they knew exactly how everything would unfold. Don't underestimate what one decision can do. One conversation can repair a broken relationship. One application can open the door to a career you never imagined. One commitment to your health can add years of energy to your life. 1 hour spent learning a new skill every day can completely change where you stand a year from now. The distance between your current reality and your future often begins with something so small that most people overlook it. There will always be another excuse waiting for you tomorrow. There will always be another distraction competing for your attention. The world will continue moving at an incredible pace, whether you decide to move with it or remain exactly where you are. The question is not whether time will pass. It will. The only question is whether you'll use that time to build the life you want or spend it wondering what might have happened if you had started today. As this conversation comes to an end, don't close it the way you've closed so many others. Don't let these words become another memory that briefly motivated you before disappearing beneath the weight of everyday life. Let this be the moment you interrupt the pattern. Let this be the day you stop negotiating with your potential and start honoring it with action. Years from now, you won't remember every sentence you heard today, but you will remember the decision you made because of it. Make that decision now, because the life you've been waiting for begins the moment you stop waiting for permission and start becoming the person who creates it.